So when I say Yoshi, what do you think of? Do you think of this Yoshi? Well, how about this Yoshi? Perhaps maybe this is the Yoshi you're thinking of. Or is it this one? Or maybe even this one. So which one's even the real Yoshi? Like, I don't know at this point. Now all of a sudden Yoshi's made of yarn. He's now a stuffed animal plush. I mean, that alt costume is now even in Smash Bros. So what's the real Yoshi? Is he still the dinosaur friend that was Mario's childhood friend growing up and now they go on adventures? Or is it this little plush character, stuffed animal? Which one's the real one? In this video, we'll be taking a look at the Yoshi series. See the natural progression of Yoshi going from being Yoshi to now Yarn Yoshi and Plush. Yoshi was first introduced in Super Mario World in 1990 and was immediately loved by all fans. What? He was this cute little dinosaur you could take care of, you could take along with you in your adventure, you could feed him fruits. Heck, even people were concerned for the fact that if Mario was actually punching him in the back of the head when trying to get him to stick out his tongue. So with the success of Super Mario World, and this character for that matter, Nintendo looked at this stuff. You know what? Let's just make a direct sequel. Super Mario World 2. Wait, it's a different game entirely? Not even the Mario series? Oh, okay. Well, maybe we just put like a subtext, like Yoshi's Island. But we still use the Mario World. There we go. That'll sell. That'll sell copies. Yoshi's Island takes an entirely different approach from the Mario series, taking a lot of creative liberties from Kirby. Being more non-punishing in its platforming, like if you fall, you can kind of just backtrack a little bit to kind of make your way forward. Most enemies in this game only take one hit. You can either eat them or throw an egg at them. This kind of gameplay was really just to encourage exploration, getting collectibles. It was even more emphasized by the game's art style as well as its music. It was fun, it was cute, you know, the Yoshis use chalk to keep record for, you know, your stats for each level. I mean, the whole game was based around the origin of the start of the friendship of Mario and Yoshi. As kids, baby Mario and baby Luigi got lost in this forest somewhere on an island, Yoshi's Island. And the Yoshis find these babies and they know they need to bring them back to the Mushroom Kingdom. So they take them on their back and kind of like telephone, they take the babies and give them from one to the next for each level progression to get them back. You know what I mean? This game was praised for how unique it was, and still had a little bit of a challenge to it, especially when trying to go for like 100%ing and getting a perfect score on each level. But there's one thing among all others that would just strike pure anxiety into any gamer playing this game. Yoshi would return a few years later on the Nintendo 64 in Yoshi's Story, kind of directly following up to that main critique of Yoshi's Island, being the babies were just too no more. We don't want that. But it still kept a lot of the same principles, really focused on that cutesy fun art style. The story was just Yoshi was hungry, so let's just feed him and eat some fruits. But this game, being the Nintendo 64, had a twist because it was 3D, well, 3D-ish. Yoshi could travel on the yellow paths, and sometimes they would branch upwards or downwards in the screen, kind of going depth and forward, kind of give that pseudo idea of Yoshi's in a more 3D looking scope of world, rather than just the typical 2D platformers that had been in the previous generation. Because the industry was still kind of shifting to 3D, it wasn't a full-blown 3D Yoshi game, but they kind of tried to simulate that using the 3D looking sprites and kind of giving that depth of field of how you move about the environment. It was a great game, but then Yoshi had a little bit of an identity crisis for the next few years. Now we enter the era of Yoshi spin-offs. We get 2 mainline titles, and now Yoshi's not really sure what direction to go. 6 years later, Yoshi Topsy-Turvy came out on the GBA. This took advantage of the Game Boy Advance's peripheral, the little gyroscope thing, and basically to move, you kind of tilted your Game Boy to have Yoshi move backwards and forth. Then a year later, they came out with Yoshi Touch and Go for the Nintendo DS, launching into the new console with that. You know, let's take advantage of this now double screen, touch screen era of Nintendo. But this was another really wonky game where Yoshi kind of just walked on his own. You would touch on the touchscreen where you want him to throw the eggs or for him to eat enemies. But beyond that, you didn't have direct control of Yoshi. A few years later, finally, Yoshi goes back to its truest form, being a direct sequel to Yoshi's Island on the Super Nintendo. And when I say direct, I mean like direct sequel. The art style is nearly identical, same kind of sprite, pixel-based looking art style. The music, the soundtrack, they both complement each other so well. Even the home screens, they look like practically identical. This truly was a direct follow-up to that original game. But to have its own personality, it even offered its own unique mechanic of having different babies that you could have on your back. You had Baby Mario, Baby Peach, Baby Donkey Kong, even Wario and Baby Bowser ended up being characters you could play with. And each of these characters offered Yoshi a unique ability, like Mario giving him super speed. Peach could use her umbrella to help you float a little bit higher while using your flutter jump. This offered a lot of variety to the gameplay, but the game did get a little critique as well. Yes, it was everything people wanted, going back to the original true form of Yoshi, but the game really struggled with difficulty spikes. It wasn't really balanced that well. I personally suffered for this. I played this game as a kid, and I got as far as I could, but I mean, even trying to return to it as a relatively grown adult, I still struggle to even get past a couple of levels because honestly, like the first few worlds totally work, totally designed correctly, but once you get a little bit farther into it, it's just like, it ramps up in weird ways. You know, Yoshi's supposed to be marketed as an easier platforming game. I mean, yes, it's still challenging, but it's not supposed to be where you struggle to beat a level. So the Yoshi series was shelved for a few years. We didn't hear from him from almost 10 years. That's it. Just Yoshi appears in other stuff for a while. No Yoshi games. That's it. Then in 2014, with the launch of the 3DS, like, you know what? It worked for the DS. Let's bring back Yoshi. But this time, it's new Yoshi. We can't just call it new Yoshi. Come on, you gotta give me something better than that. Okay, don't worry, I got it better. Okay, ready? Yoshi's New Island. This is another return to form of the Yoshi series, going with the classic platform design like the original Super Nintendo game. This game experimented with a 2.5D kind of art style, taking advantage of the 3DS's, 3D slider as well, but there wasn't really much beyond that. See, the thing is, yes, it was a Yoshi game, but it really didn't have much personality. The spin-offs, I mean, while they were kind of just random spin-off games, I mean, each had a very distinct kind of gameplay feeling to it. Yoshi's Story, while it's still a core Yoshi game, it had a totally different kind of objective where you're collecting fruits to kind of complete levels. Even Yoshi's Island DS, while it did have its critiques with the level 2 spikes, at least it still had its own personality with the different kind of babies you could use for power-ups. Yoshi's New Island was just Yoshi kind of running around. I mean, that was it. The level design was kind of uninspired, and a staple of the Yoshi series is its soundtrack, its cutesy vibe, its music just so fitting, right? But for Yoshi's New Island, they're like, okay, you know what? Let's take the kazoo and just base an entire video game soundtrack around this instrument. It's gonna be great. So now we're back at square one. Yoshi, again, having a crisis, not really sure where to go here. And like every time they take a step forward, it's just another 2 steps back. So it's like, what are they gonna do? You know what are they gonna do? And Yoshi's Woolly World was that answer. They just threw it all out and said, okay, let's take the core mechanics of a Yoshi game and let's really go wild with just a brand new art style. And build off that art style to build new mechanics for Yoshi. They got a lot of inspiration for the Wii game, Kirby's Epic Yarn, and really wanted to expand beyond that, because Kirby's Epic Yarn was still a 2D experience. It was more, Kirby as a little yarn outline. They wanted to take that even a step further and say, what if we just build an entire world out of yarn? People loved this game. It fixed the problem that the previous game didn't have. It has a personality. When you see Yoshi's Woolly World, it's like, this is Yoshi's Woolly World. This isn't just some generic whatever. It continued with that simplistic platform design, emphasizing exploration and collection-based gameplay model, and the music. The soundtrack was, now that brings us to today. They look at Yoshi's Woolly World and they're like, you know what? Can we push this even farther? Now Yoshi is a plush, and he's exploring, instead of a just yarn sewn together world, now it's a world that looks just completely hand-built, made of crafts and cardboard. And in this game, they pushed it to the extreme. Each stage almost looks like you could just build it in real life. But if you take a step back, Yoshi's Woolly World and Crafter World, yeah, they make sense together. But in the larger picture of things, is it still Yoshi after all? And the thing is, yes, actually.
It may seem like this crafted and woolly appearance kind of came out of nowhere, but after looking back on the series' history, there actually is a lot of indications, hints towards that the idea of Yoshi's world is crafted. Starting with the Super Nintendo game, the shading on the environments and the set pieces make it look like it was a coloring book. Yoshi's story tries to mimic that appearance of a pop-up storybook. Even looking at a lot of the environments like rocks and such, rather than being, actual rocks, more look like sewn together plushes, or perhaps fabric stuffed with cotton balls. This is a trend that is continuous throughout the entire series of Yoshi and has been there since the start. Yoshi started as being kind of like a storybook, or something for children, But Yoshi has evolved from more than being just the book, to now being the entire crafts room. Starting with things sewn together using wool, and now just being every sort of craft you could imagine. While visually him and his world looks different, these common trends still are apparent throughout its entire series.
When it really comes down to what makes up a Yoshi game, it's the simplistic platforming design, right? It's a non-punishing format where, more an emphasis on you getting through the level rather than if you continue to die in a certain spot, the player is punished to try to get better. The real question is, where is Yoshi gonna go from this? They have pushed Yoshi to the full extent of this crafted and woolly type art style. It really makes me wonder what the heck are they gonna do with Yoshi next? So no matter which Yoshi is your Yoshi, every Yoshi has been Yoshi at its Yoshi core. He will always be the lovable dinosaur no matter what form he takes. Even though visually in the last iterations he looked drastically different than he has in previous ones, I think to its core, they're still very much Yoshis. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to give this video a big awesome like. If you haven't already, definitely subscribe for tons more on Yoshi, probably. Thanks again guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!